The alien desert was quiet, too quiet. Mark stood beside the ancient tower, adjusting the broken circuit panel. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. Even under 2 suns, the heat felt dry and heavy. The tower was tall, metal, and half covered in red dust. Old tech, long abandoned by its creators. His mission was simple: fix the signal booster and return to the human base. But something didn't feel right today. He heard it. Step, crunch. Step, crunch. Mark stopped working. He didn't move. His fingers froze above the wires. The sound came from behind him, heavy, slow footsteps in the dust, too big to be human, too steady to be a mistake. He turned his head slightly. Nothing. The wind blew. Sand danced around his boots. He waited. Maybe it was just in his mind. Crunch. Crunch, crunch, now he was sure. Something was there, and now it was closer. He dropped his toolkit and turned around fast, his heart beating hard in his chest, and then he saw them. 3 huge creatures standing side by side, only 10 meters away. They looked like dogs, but not like any earth dog he had seen. These beasts were tall, muscular, and covered in thick black fur with glowing blue stripes. Their eyes burned like cold fire. Their jaws were wide, sharp, dripping with black liquid. And on their backs they were pieces of armor. Alien armor. Mark whispered, "What the hell?" One of them growled. The sound was deep, metallic, almost like a machine. Another stepped forward. The sand beneath its paw crunched hard. Mark took a step back, but he didn't dare run. Something told him that running would be a mistake. He quickly pressed his wrist communicator. "Base, this is Mark. I have a problem. I repeat, I'm not alone here." Static. Only static. The creatures moved again. Now only 5 meters away. Surrounding him slowly, his communicator buzzed. A voice came through. "Mark, get out of there. Those are gorehounds. Do not engage." Gorehounds. What the hell is a gorehound? Alien war beasts, programmed to kill anything not from their clan. If you're near an old tower, they're probably guarding something. Yeah? Well, they found me instead, Mark shouted, backing up to the tower wall. One of the beasts growled again, deeper this time. The third one lowered its head, eyes locked on Mark. Saliva dripped from its mouth. Mark looked up. Above him was a ladder that led to the roof of the tower. "Only one chance," he whispered. He jumped for the ladder and climbed fast. The metal was hot, but fear burned hotter in his chest. As he climbed, the gorehounds barked, loud and angry. One of them leapt up and slammed into the base of the ladder, shaking it. Mark almost lost his grip, but he made it to the roof. Breathing hard, he rolled onto the hot surface, pulling a small laser pistol from his side belt. Useless against creatures that big. Still, better than nothing. He crawled to the edge and looked down. The gorehounds were circling the tower. Their growls echoed through the empty desert. They weren't leaving. Mark stood up slowly. Now what? He asked himself. That's when he heard it again. Not from behind this time, but from above. A loud vroom noise cut through the sky. Mark looked up. A hoverbike flew down fast, kicking up a cloud of red dust. On it rode a figure in a red cloak. A long weapon hung from her back. The figure moved with grace and power. As the bike landed, on the rooftop, Mark pointed his laser pistol at the rider. "Stop! Who are you?" The figure removed her hood. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver. Her eyes glowed faint purple. A symbol was drawn on her cheek. Her long dark hair moved in the wind like it had its own life. She stared at Mark, then at the gorehounds below. She said calmly, "You are lucky I heard your signal." Mark lowered his gun, confused. "Who are you?" he asked. She looked at him, serious. "My name is Vela, and you have stepped into something very dangerous." She turned her head toward the desert. "They were not hunting you by accident," she said softly. "They were sent." Mark frowned. "Sent by who?" Vela looked back at him. "That's what we need to find out. But first, we survive." Down below, the gorehounds howled again, louder, closer. The ground was still shaking. Mark stared over the edge of the tower rooftop as the 3 gorehounds circled below like shadows ready to pounce. But now, something was different. Their eyes had changed, brighter, focused. And when they howled this time, it wasn't wild. It was a signal. Vela stepped beside Mark, pulling out a long weapon from her back. It looked like a sniper rifle, but glowing with blue energy veins. She didn't aim. She simply watched them. "They're not just wild beasts," she said. "They're hunters, trained, waiting for command." Mark glanced at her. "Command? From who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she raised her rifle toward the desert behind them and fired. Boom! Something exploded in the dust, far beyond the tower. For a moment, the hounds paused, ears twitching. Then all 3 turned and charged away toward the smoke. Mark blinked. "You scared them off?" "No," Vela said. "I distracted them. We have maybe 3 minutes." Mark grabbed his bag and followed her as she jumped back onto her hover bike. "You coming?" she asked. "I don't have a bike." She tossed him a metal disc. "Step on it. Think forward." Mark threw the disc down. It hovered, barely, and he stepped on it. It wobbled, but it held. As soon as he thought about moving, the disc shot forward, pulling him after Vela at high speed. They zoomed across the desert. The tower faded into the haze behind them. Mark shouted through the wind, "Where are we going?" Vela's voice came through the headset, calm. "Somewhere they won't follow." They entered a rocky canyon carved deep into the planet's surface. Strange glowing plants grew along the walls. The air was cooler here. After a short ride, they stopped inside a cave with smooth black stone walls. It had power, lights, tools, even a table with maps. Clearly someone's hideout. Mark stepped off the disc, legs shaking. "Okay," he said, "I need answers." Vela set her rifle on the table. "Ask. First of all, what the hell are those things?" She nodded. "Gorehounds, created by a race called the Zern, used in war to track enemies through scent, heat, even sound. Once they find you, they don't stop." Mark frowned. "But why are they after me? I was just repairing a tower." Vela turned to him. "That tower wasn't just a signal booster. It was a beacon, a message tower built during the ancient wars. It was locked with a human access code." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Human? Why would aliens use a human code?" "That's the question," she said. "Someone built it for your kind. Or maybe by your kind." Mark stepped back. "You're saying humans were here? Before?" Vela didn't answer. She pulled a hologram from the wall. It showed a map with glowing dots across the desert. The tower was the first. But there are others. And now, since you touched the controls, they know you're active." Mark sighed, rubbing his face. "I just wanted to finish the mission and go home." Vela walked up to him. "You can't go back yet. If the Zern know you can activate the beacons, they'll send more than dogs." Mark looked at her. "Then what do we do?" "We find the next tower before they do." Suddenly the cave shook. A deep growl echoed through the walls. Vela's eyes widened. "No. They found us." The lights flickered. Mark turned toward the cave entrance. A low, familiar growl came from the dark. Then another, and another. All 3 gorehounds were standing at the entrance. But this time, they weren't alone. Behind them stood a tall, thin alien wearing armor and a skull-shaped helmet. His hand pointed toward Mark, and the dogs moved forward. The cave lights died. Total darkness. Mark couldn't breathe. He heard Vela loading her weapon in the dark, fast, calm, practiced. Outside, the growling of the gorehounds echoed like a death drum. But now there was something worse. Footsteps. Heavy. Metallic. Slow. The alien figure from before had entered the cave. "Mark," Vela whispered. "Hide behind the crate. Now." Mark dove silently behind the supply box as Vela stepped forward into the open. The glow from her rifle lit her silver skin. She raised the weapon toward the shadow approaching. "You're trespassing," Vela said coldly. The figure stepped into the faint light, tall, armored, and wearing a black battle mask. His voice was cold and broken like a machine. "I came for the human." Vela didn't move. "He's under my protection." The gorehound stepped forward, snarling, teeth flashing in the low light. But they didn't attack, not until their master gave the word. Mark's heart pounded as he pressed his hand to the cold crate. His mind raced. Why was he the target? What did they want from him? "You are not their kind," the masked alien said to Vela. "Why do you care if this one lives?" Vela's voice was steady. "Because he activated the beacon, and now we need him." The alien tilted his head. "Then you've just made yourself a target." He raised his hand. Vela fired. The cave flashed with blue light. The blast hit one of the gorehounds in the chest. It flew back, crashed into the wall, and didn't get up. Mark flinched, then grabbed a metal rod from beside him. If they rushed in, he was ready to fight. Vela rolled across the floor and fired again. Another gorehound leapt to dodge but got hit in the leg. It howled and limped away. Only one beast remained now, the biggest. It locked eyes with Mark. Then it charged straight at him. Mark raised the metal rod and shouted, swinging with all his strength. Crack! The rod hit its jaw, but barely slowed it down. The beast knocked him down, its black drool dripping onto his face. He shouted and kicked, trying to push it off. Suddenly, a loud whistle. The beast stopped. The masked alien had raised his hand again, commanding it. "This human," the alien said, stepping closer, "belongs to us. He carries the signal in his blood." Vela stepped between them. "Over my dead body." The masked alien smiled beneath his skull helmet. "As you wish." He drew a blade from his back, glowing red-hot. Mark groaned under the weight of the beast. "Any time now would be great." Vela charged. Her blade clashed with his. Sparks flew. The sound echoed like thunder in the cave. Mark used the moment to grab a fallen blaster. He didn't know how to use alien weapons, but he pulled the trigger anyway. Zap! The gorehound screamed and dropped to the side. Vela shouted, "Move!" Mark scrambled to his feet. "Where?" She pointed at the back wall. "There's an escape shaft. Go." Mark ran. The shaft was narrow and hidden behind crates. He slid into it as Vela blasted the ceiling. The rocks collapsed behind him, sealing the entrance. Later, Mark crawled out from the other end of the tunnel and fell onto the cold sand. His body ached. His face was bloody, but he was alive. He looked back. The cave was gone, buried, and Vela was missing. He stood up alone under the alien sky. But then, a sound, a soft hum. Her hoverbike flew toward him, riderless, and stopped. A voice came from the bike's comm. "System, get on. I'm not done protecting you yet." Mark smiled slightly. "She's alive." He jumped on the bike, and the sky lit up with distant explosions behind him. The tower was glowing. Not the top, not the circuits, the ground beneath. Mark stood next to Vela, both staring at the red sand shifting in circles. A low hum vibrated under their feet. Something old was waking up, something buried. They had returned to the same tower Mark had tried to fix. But now, after the gorehound's attack and the cave ambush, everything felt different. The tower wasn't just a piece of broken tech anymore. It was a lock, and Mark was the key. He whispered, "What's down there?" Vela's face was serious. "Something your kind was never supposed to find." Before Mark could speak again, the ground split open with a hiss. A large circular hatch rose from under the sand, revealing a staircase spiraling down into blackness. Strange symbols on the steps lit up, glowing in response to Mark's presence. He stepped closer. The symbols changed shape as he moved. Vela stared. "They're reacting to your DNA." "But I've never been here before," Mark said. "How is this even possible?" She answered quietly. "Maybe your ancestors were." They walked down slowly. The air grew colder, heavier, and filled with the scent of metal and ash. As they reached the bottom, They entered a massive underground chamber. It looked like a control room, but not human, not alien. It was both. Machines with human-style screens sat next to alien glowing vines. One wall showed a giant star map, half of it blinking in red. In the center was a black pod, tall, sealed, and pulsing with light. Mark stepped toward it. The closer he got, the louder the hum in his ears became. "What is it?" he asked. Vela was already scanning the room with her device. "This entire place, it's some kind of hybrid tech, human and alien fused together." She walked over to the pod and wiped off the dust. More glowing symbols appeared, shifting quickly, until they locked into English. Authorized user detected. Unlocking. Mark took a step back. The pod hissed and opened. Inside was a strange container filled with floating memory crystals. They swirled in a perfect circle, spinning slowly in the air. But then Mark noticed something else. A body. Frozen in stasis, lying inside the chamber below the crystals, was a humanoid girl. Silver skin, glowing tattoos on her arms, and a crest on her chest that looked very similar to the Human Federation logo. Mark's voice shook. "Is she human?" Vela scanned her. "Not fully. She's like me. Mixed." Mark stared at her, then at the symbols around the pod. Suddenly he saw something strange. A name engraved into the side of the pod, under layers of dust. He brushed it off. His heart stopped. The name was Mark Thorne, genetic signature accepted. "What? That's me." Vela stepped closer. "Then this was always meant for you." Before they could say more, the room lights flickered. Mark turned toward the entrance. The door behind them slammed shut. Loud metal locks clicked into place. Voice echoed through the room. "Robotic, cold, unauthorized access, external presence detected. Neutralization protocol active." The map screen turned red. Mark shouted, "What's happening?" Vela pulled him back. "You triggered a defense system. They think I'm the threat." Call. Pod's defense shield rose up around the girl's body, and red drones appeared from the walls, floating, aiming energy weapons at Vela. Mark stood in front of her. "No, she's with me." But the system didn't listen. Countdown started. 10, 9, 8. Vela shouted, "There has to be a bypass code." Mark grabbed one of the memory crystals floating above the pod. It sparked in his hand, and suddenly, he saw visions. A war. Humans and aliens fighting together. A voice, his own voice, but older, saying, "If anyone finds this, protect her. She's the future." Mark gasped and dropped the crystal. He knew what to do. He stepped forward and placed his palm on the main console. "Override protocol, Mark Thorne, full access." The countdown stopped. The drones powered down. The door unlocked. Silence. Vela looked at him, shocked. "You've done this before." Mark's hands shook. "I think, in another life maybe, I have." They both stared at the sleeping girl in the pod. Mark whispered, "Who is she?" Vela replied, "The reason you're being hunted." The night didn't feel like night. It felt like the sky was holding its breath. Dark clouds covered the twin moons. The wind blew strange sounds through the canyon, not howls, not whistles, something in between. Mark and Vela stood beside the hoverbike. Behind them, the sealed underground vault hummed silently, the girl still asleep inside. Mark clutched the memory crystal in his hand. His mind was still echoing with that vision, his own voice, his own face, but older, saying, "Protect her, or everything ends." "I don't understand," Mark whispered. "What is she? Why me?" Vela's hand tightened on her rifle. "Answers come later. Right now we need to move. They're already coming." Mark looked around. "Who?" She looked up toward the black sky. "Everyone." They sped through the alien desert. Mark rode behind Vela on her bike, gripping tight. Red lightning cracked across the clouds above, lighting up the distant hills. Every time the sky flashed, Mark thought he saw shadows, not one, not two, but dozens moving through the sands. I thought the dogs were the worst, he shouted. Vela didn't look back. The gorehounds were just the trackers. What comes next are the collectors. Mark didn't like the sound of that. What do they collect? Vela said nothing. Then he saw it. In the sky behind them, a black triangular ship. Silent. Floating like a shadow. Its lights scanned the desert below. It was following them. Vela pressed a button on her belt. We need to split. Mark's eyes widened. Split? She tossed him a second hoverboard and pointed. Go east, toward the red cliffs. Stay low. I'll draw them away. Mark shook his head. No way. I'm not leaving you alone. She snapped back. You're not the mission, she is, and only you can protect her. Before he could argue, she hit the turbo. Her bike roared and swerved away, blasting toward the hills. The ship turned to chase her. Mark cursed and jumped onto the hoverboard, flying low across the sand. He rode through the red cliffs, ducking between narrow paths. The stars above blinked in and out behind thick storm clouds. Every few minutes he heard claws scraping rock or mechanical growls in the dark. Something was tracking him. Again. But it wasn't the gorehounds. It was worse. At the edge of a canyon, Mark's board gave a warning beep. Low power. He landed on a flat ledge and looked around. Red rocks. Silent air. No sign of Vela. No sound of the ship. Then, a clicking sound. Click. 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 It came from above. Mark looked up and froze. A collector drone was crawling across the canyon wall. Its limbs were long and sharp. Its eyes glowed green. It wasn't flying, it was climbing like an insect, slow and patient. Mark backed away. Another click. Then a voice. Inside his head. Return the hybrid. Return the key. Return the spark. Mark shouted, Get out of my head! He fired blindly, with the alien blaster Vela gave him. The shot hit the drone. It fell, hit the ground, and shattered. But more clicks echoed around the canyon. More were coming. He ran, climbed up the nearest ridge, and dropped behind a rock. He opened his bag and pulled out the memory crystal again. It pulsed in his hand. For a second it calmed his fear. He whispered, What do you want me to do? The crystal glowed, and a new vision flashed in his mind. This time, not of war, but of peace. A girl standing in the ruins of a battlefield holding a silver flag. Behind her, both aliens and humans stood, not fighting but side by side. The girl from the pod. She was meant to unite them, but only if she lived. Mark looked out over the canyon. The collector drones were crawling through the rocks, dozens now. Searching, sniffing, listening. He held the crystal tight and muttered, You're not taking her. Then a new sound, a loud energy blast. Vela's hoverbike flew over the ridge, flaming, broken, and crashed near him. She was limping, half covered in dust, but alive. She slid beside him, breathing hard. They're not giving up, she said. Mark looked at the crystal. Then we don't either. They thought it was a weapon, but it was never a weapon. It was a signal. High above the desert, the sky shimmered with golden light. Every drone froze in place. The massive collector ship halted mid-air, completely silent. At the center of it, all the hybrid girl, glowing, floating, stood beside Mark. Her hair danced like it was underwater. Her eyes were pure silver blue. Mark stood tall, dust on his face, heart pounding in his chest. The world had stopped moving. Below them, Vela struggled to stand. She had taken hits, her armor cracked, but her eyes were locked on the glowing girl above. She's awake, Vela whispered. Finally, the girl raised her hand. Her voice echoed across the land, not just through the air, but inside every machine, and every mind connected to it. This war ends now. From every direction, things began to change. The drones powered down, dropping their weapons. The ground-based collectors backed away, lowering their blades. Even the warship above began to shift, its lights turning from red to blue. Mark watched in awe. They're listening to her. The girl turned to him and spoke gently. I was made from both, human and alien. I was meant to unite them, but they feared me, so they buried me. Mark asked, Who made you? She smiled sadly. Your ancestors and theirs together, long ago before the split. As she spoke, beams of light shot into the sky from distant towers, beacons one after another. The entire planet responded to her activation. The lost network had awakened. Back at the ridge, Vela limped toward them. Mark ran to her and helped her up. You all right? He asked. I've had worse, she said, smiling. You did it. Mark shook his head. No. We did it. The hybrid girl looked at both of them. Now comes the hard part, telling the galaxy the truth. Mark raised an eyebrow. You mean the truth that humanity and aliens were never enemies? She nodded. That they were always meant to build something greater, together. Suddenly a transmission buzzed in Mark's wrist communicator. A human voice came through, nervous, panicked. Mark? This is Base Command. What the hell's happening out there? We're seeing lights shut down signals all over the sector. Mark smiled and replied, Tell them, it's over. Tell them she's awake. Who's she? Mark looked at the girl. The one your history books forgot. News spread fast. Within days, alien and human ships arrived, not with weapons, but with questions. The hybrid girl, now called Elira, stood before them all. She didn't give orders. She gave a message. A memory crystal was uploaded across all networks. It showed the original creators, humans and aliens, standing side by side, designing a future powered by peace, protected by guardians like Elira. Some doubted it. Some feared her, but millions listened, because for the first time they saw what was truly possible. Later, Mark stood at the edge of the tower watching the sun rise. Vela walked up beside him. She's already changing things, she said. There are talks now between species that haven't spoken in decades. Mark nodded. You think it'll last? Vela smirked. Not if we leave it to the politicians, but maybe, if people like us help her. Mark turned to her. Then let's stay. She looked at him. Together? He smiled. Always. In the sky, new towers lit up. New beacons came online, and, somewhere, deep in the stars, other hybrids like Elira stirred in their sleep, waiting to be found.